Have you ever stopped to think that a simple glass of beer might be directly linked to the rise of civilization itself? From casual bar meetups to massive festivals, beer is a constant presence in modern life. But its story goes far beyond just a cheerful toast. It is, in fact, deeply intertwined with the evolution of societies, economies, and even religious beliefs. Imagine a time when drinking beer wasn't just a choice, it was a necessity. In ancient civilizations, this fermented drink played a much larger role than just entertainment. It was part of the economy, religion, and social structure. So how did beer help shape the world as we know it today? And why was it so important to civilizations like the Sumerians, Egyptians, and later medieval Europeans? In this video, we're going to explore how beer became one of the pillars of human society, influencing everything from trade and agriculture to religion and science. Stick around until the end to uncover how beer's journey through history reflects the story of civilization itself. The story of beer begins in one of the earliest civilizations known to history, the Sumerians. Around 4000 BCE, in the heart of Mesopotamia, beer was already being brewed and consumed on a large scale. But this wasn't just any drink. For the Sumerians, beer was an essential element of everyday life. Beer was more than a refreshing beverage. It was a dietary staple, often replacing unsafe drinking water. It was a spiritual offering, used in rituals and religious ceremonies. The Sumerians made their beer from fermented barley, and remarkably, the oldest known recipe in the world is for Sumerian beer. This recipe was inscribed on clay tablets in cuneiform script and describes how a type of barley bread was soaked in water and left to ferment, producing a mildly alcoholic drink. Beer also had practical economic uses. It was used to pay laborers who built temples, irrigation systems, and other infrastructure. Beer had such a central role in daily life that the Sumerians even had a deity dedicated to it, Ninkasi, the goddess of beer. Hymns written in her honor served as both religious devotion and brewing instructions. This combination of sacred meaning and everyday utility made beer indispensable to Sumerian society. Beer's story didn't end in Mesopotamia. In ancient Egypt, it also played a vital role in everyday life and societal organization. While wine was typically reserved for the elite and religious rituals, beer was the drink of the people. It was widely consumed across all social classes, from peasants to royalty. The process of brewing beer in Egypt relied on barley and emmer wheat, both of which were cultivated along the fertile banks of the Nile River. The resulting beverage was thick, cloudy, and nutritious. More like a food than a modern drink, this version of beer was essential to the diet of laborers and farmers. It was also consumed by children and the elderly, making it an everyday necessity. Religious ceremonies in Egypt also featured beer prominently. Priests offered beer to gods as a part of their rituals. It was considered a sacred gift, especially in temples dedicated to Osiris, the god of agriculture and the afterlife. In mythology, beer was even used by the goddess Hathor to avoid destroying humanity, showing its symbolic and divine value. Beer played a significant economic role as well. Laborers who built monumental structures like the pyramids were often compensated with daily beer rations. This made beer both a form of payment and an incentive to work. It kept workers nourished, hydrated, and motivated. For the Egyptians, beer was not only a staple food and drink, but also a currency, a sacrament, and a symbol of cultural identity. In Mesopotamia, which is often called the cradle of civilization, beer held a similarly exalted position. Among the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians, beer was sacred. Like the Egyptians, they attributed beer to divine origin. Ninkasi continued to be revered, and her worship reflected how central beer was to the Mesopotamian worldview. Beer production in this region was highly advanced for its time. Detailed records show how beer was brewed, stored, and distributed. These civilizations developed complex administrative systems that tracked beer rations for workers, taxation, and trade. During religious festivals, beer flowed freely. It was consumed during public feasts that celebrated the gods and reinforced community bonds. Beer was a tool of social integration. It unified people during times of celebration and mourning. It was used in courtship rituals, marriage ceremonies, and funerals. It transcended the boundaries between the sacred and the secular, offering a shared experience across generations. In ancient Egypt, beer had layered meanings. It was a practical foodstuff, a religious offering, a symbol of prosperity, and a mark of social status. The wealthy consumed clearer and more refined beer, while the poor drank thicker, more filling versions. Medicine also incorporated beer, with ancient Egyptian papyri describing its use in over 100 treatments. The Festival of Hathor was among the most important beer-related events in Egyptian culture. Celebrated with song, dance, and mass consumption of beer, it honored the goddess of joy and fertility. These communal events were key to social cohesion, bringing people together in shared religious and cultural experiences. Beer's power extended beyond its physical effects. It helped shape the structure of early economies. In places like Mesopotamia and Egypt, beer served as wages, offerings, trade goods, and symbols of divine favor. Temples and palaces controlled production, reinforcing the link between spiritual authority and economic power. As time moved on, beer continued to play a crucial role in shaping human society. In medieval Europe, beer remained a staple of everyday life. The water in many areas was unsafe to drink, making fermented beverages like beer a healthier option. The alcohol in beer, though mild by modern standards, killed off harmful bacteria. Monasteries emerged as centers of beer production during this period. Monks were skilled brewers who refined recipes and developed early forms of quality control. Brewing became a disciplined craft. Monastic beers were consumed during religious holidays and public festivals, further strengthening ties between faith and community. Beer also influenced the rise of trade guilds. These organizations helped regulate the quality and distribution of food and drink. Guilds ensured that beer production met community standards and protected the rights of both brewers and consumers. They created social and economic networks that tied towns and cities together. Taverns and alehouses became social hubs. These establishments weren't just places to drink. They were where people discussed politics, formed friendships, and negotiated deals. Beer fostered communication and camaraderie in a time when most people lived locally and traveled little. These community centers became the backbone of urban life in medieval Europe. As we transitioned into the modern era, beer underwent further transformation. Industrial Revolution brought technological advancements that radically changed beer production. Innovations such as steam engines, refrigeration, and bottling revolutionized the brewing process. Beer could now be mass-produced and transported over long distances. This era saw the rise of some of the world's most famous breweries. Companies like Anheuser-Busch, Heineken, and Guinness grew into global giants. These brands helped standardize beer styles and introduced it to new markets around the world. Beer went from being a local staple to a global product. Marketing also became a crucial part of beer's identity in the modern age. Breweries began to craft brand stories and run advertising campaigns that connected beer with ideas of freedom, friendship, celebration, and patriotism. This helped solidify beer's place in popular culture, making it a symbol of national identity and everyday enjoyment. By the 20th century, beer had become more than just a drink. It was part of major social movements, celebrations, and political moments. Whether shared at sporting events, barbecues, or political rallies, beer continued to unite people across class, race, and geography. Today, beer remains a symbol of community and tradition. The craft beer movement, which began in the late 20th century, brought brewing back to its artisanal roots. Small, independent brewers have revived ancient recipes and created bold new flavors. This renaissance has reconnected beer with local culture, sustainability, and innovation. We can now appreciate beer not only as a beverage, but as a reflection of human ingenuity and social evolution. From the clay pots of ancient Sumer to the steel tanks of modern craft breweries, beer has accompanied humanity through every major chapter of our history. It nourished workers, pleased gods, sealed deals, and brought people together. So next time you raise a glass, remember, you're not just drinking beer. You're tasting the legacy of civilization itself.